Hello and welcome, ladies and gents, back to 2.5 Talent. It's been a little while since we've done one of these, couple of months, as we kind of always do. We give ourselves multiple talking points before we get around to an episode, and we're back. No better talking points really at the moment than the major itself. We are coming towards the tail end now, not even really halfway through. We're over halfway through. One more stage is left, the playoffs. We'll get into all of those details in just a second, but before we get into all of it, boys, it's been... I would say about a month and a half since doing one of these. What have we been up to? Trav, Kickstarter us. What's been the last month and a half for you?
Bits and pieces. Done some casting for fun qualifiers for ESL. I stood in to do some Elisa as well, and that was a really fun day of Counter Strike because I think there was a ridiculous performance from Alternate Attacks that day to beat Medisport. I had a chance to cast Medisport in some of the IEM quals as well, and Nilo had that ridiculous 1 versus 5
True.
that got a lot of people talking, even though people are already talking about him, obviously. But yeah, a lot of fun, always enjoyable, and yeah, I think taking in the major, taking in the failure of my pick'ems has been the painful, been the pain that I think a lot of people have gone through. I think that document that had all the notable names from the scene, I think like 80% of people got the first stage wrong. So yeah, at least that's some consolation.
Father, what about you? What's the last month and a half been?
It's been a lot of a similar state for us Trav. Well, I had a lot of qualifiers and stuff. We were doing Compass together, you and I,
Yes,
and that was enjoyable. I got accepted into a school in Philadelphia, so I'm moving in August.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to get that started. So I actually went down to Philadelphia to meet Cole Extra McHenry, and we hung out a little bit and try to look at the look at the campus and stuff like that. But yeah, super excited to move and get that ball rolling. And yeah, the major has not necessarily been the greatest for me either. Got the legend stage right, or the elimination stage right, and it is what it is. We are only off by like 2. It's like, honestly, if I just swapped 2 of them, I think I would have gotten it, like from the 3-0 to the 3-1, which is like most people, but whatever.
Yeah.
I will complain, and I hope that all my friends that are available to get a diamond cannot get a type I am just that type of person.
Yeah, I'm praying on the downfall.
Hate Maxer.
Everybody, I'm praying on the downfall. Anybody that I know, if they get a diamond, I'm going to be so annoyed. But like you said, it is quite literally, I think now, going into the playoff stage, it's like, was it 8 or 9, something like that? And it's like, Scrawny, Pimp, Carrigan, fucking Loba is one of them as well. Brian, yeah.
The Antichrist.
Ow! My God, Paladin, do you want to get any less pixels here? What's going on?
I'm trying. I don't know. My camera is just royally fucked. Fuck you.
Yeah, there is there's not a lot. Yeah, I think it's only Pimp and Scrawny from like the talent that I can think of that are still in contention. But yeah, how Brian's done it, who knows? He got Mao's 3-0 right, which was very annoying.
I did too, so I would be annoying as well.
Yeah, true. When I kind of fell out of diamond contention, I just kind of started trolling a little bit.
I just want to tell you that this guy put Mouse 3-0, but he has them to lose to Eternal Fire in the semi. So he doesn't even believe in them beyond that 3-0, and I find that just bullshit, man. Come on.
I do find that quite funny that he's just cheesed his way to that 3-0.
It's just vibes. It's just vibes.
I've got four picks in both stages, basically. Second stage, I did just hard troll because I knew I was kind of out of diamond already, so I just started kind of throwing them around. I started hate maxing a little bit because I had to go 3. Fuck him. Just went for it, basically. I'm not going to get diamonds, so I don't really care at this point anymore. And I think now I'm giving away a knife because I didn't get 4 out of 5 right. But at least I don't think the randomizer beat me. I don't think, because that had some rogue picks. That had like FaZe going 0-3. So I did get saved a little bit by that. But yeah, last month and a half, it's been okay. Did a few online bits here and there with a couple of ESL stuff, a couple of the IM quals. Did Dallas for EU, which is good. Did 4 days of that, like including the A stream, which is good. We got some really good games with teams like Heroic playing, Ents playing, Metasport made a deep run for the lower bracket. That was good. That was good fun. Obviously, a shit at the RMR, of course. Yeah, I guess probably last time we did was before the RMR.
Yeah.
So at that, which was really good fun. Week out in Bucharest, Romania, working the Americas was good fun. I had some really good games, and the vlog for that is actually now officially, it's edited, it's ready to go. I'm basically just waiting on PGL to give it the okay, make sure I didn't like record anything I wasn't meant to. So they're giving it a once over, and then it should come out. But yeah, that was really good fun. It was a good week. One of the really big positives I have to say about working with PGL, we had a PC in the hotel room. First time I've had that. That was a really big plus. Like sometimes, you can sit in the hotel rooms late and it'd be hella boring, or throughout the day, hella boring. No, grinding CS. First time I even got a lightning bolt was during the RMR. So yeah, no, it was good fun. It was really good fun. We had some really good games as well. I had the Furia Liquid game, which was good fun. Two pretty big teams. I think that was like the second most viewed game as well, bar the what was the final? Who was the final game? The really big one. Complexity Liquid. Yeah, I think that was the most viewed game, and I think Furia Liquid, despite even being a best of one, was still one of the most viewed, which was good fun. And then I had MAT.
Yeah, MAT Legacy as well.
That was a banger. I had a lot of fun on that one. As well, right? The way it worked is only 3 out of the 4 talent or duos got to work the final day because there's only 3 games. There's four of us, so it was a real lucky dip. Who's gonna get it? And then thankfully, me and Cody did get it, which I'm glad, because we were the only ones that were only there for the Americas, where everybody else had worked at least EU or Asia at one point. So I'm glad we got that final game. Got to see a team go through and won't get eliminated. You get all those kind of storylines. MAT looked so good for that first map, and then they let it slip, man. You hate to see it. But enough of what we've been up to. Let's talk about what has been going on overall. Let's head over to the major itself. We'll start from the elimination stage. Opening stage was so long ago. Who really cares, to be honest? But elimination stage. Mals went 3-0. Spirit went 3-0. Mongols went 0-3. Furia went 0-3. Not a great showing from Furia. Not even just in the elimination stage, but also even probably the opening stage as well. They were rough. Losses not exactly great as well. 13-3 to G2. 13-7 to FaZe. And then losing 2-1 to Ecstatic. Yeah. I mean, Ecstatic... If Furia played the way they were meant to, I would have got my pick'ems right. But they gave a free win to Ecstatic, which you hate to see. But yeah, I mean, a couple of in particular, I think obviously Furia is probably the big one for me in terms of how poorly they played. Complexity not making it through as well. I mean, I did actually put them going through, but I think they would have wanted to. Couple of big ones like missing out on that playoff stage. But then again, the playoff bracket is absolutely stacked.
It bums me out that Furia just bombed out, but honestly, it makes me really happy that they bombed out, because now, at least surely at this point, the org and the management are aware that this roster isn't going anywhere and never has gone anywhere. And if we're going to continue to convince ourselves that there is some legs to this roster, that is all Dash now. So hopefully, at the very least, personnel changes are made to either Fallen or Art or both. I would like changes in that sense. I think even Cello, even though he had a good map here or there, I don't think that this is the right role for him. So either they give him a role change or they kick him out of the team. This roster, this org needs a whole revamp, because as you can see from teams like Imperial, teams like Pain, the talent is there, the tactics are there, the coaching is there. It's just not on Furia, and as the premier organization in Brazil, you have failed the region, and by then some.
Yeah, I mean, that's the craziest thing that you mentioned, right? The fact that Pain and Imperial both outperformed them. We all came into this major looking at the previous majors, especially for the opening stage, saying, oh, what, teams like INTZ, 00 Nation in the past, all went 0-3. We all thought it would be a legacy Pain 0-3. They had not an impressive run in the RMR whatsoever. Yeah. And they looked bad as well against some, under par teams in that RMR. We thought they were a 0-3 lock. Not the case. Especially Pain, were absolutely brilliant. Big Uzera had a life tournament.
Best IGL in the whole region,
he is,
I say. By the longest shot, and has been as well for the longest time. We've all said this for a while.
Yes.
When it started as a bit of a meme for me back in Melbourne, Pain and that team and Biggest Era in particular, what they have done over the last couple of years, and him in particular, the whole team gets just uprooted, right? Loses Skulls, Zev, everybody, right? All of the names on that team, and comes back with an even better team. Man, what a showing.
I mean, you compare just the raw cores from the Melbourne core to the current core.
Yeah.
And you're telling me Cowes, Lux, and Nissim is gonna go
No name
band for
value.
band with like all
Yeah.
of these organizations and go 2-3? That is crazy to me.
Yeah.
That's absolutely outrageous.
Cowes
Yeah,
going 2-3. You hate to see it.
I know, right? Like, it's literally like they got like they'll probably even admit themselves they had no name value whatsoever
Yeah.
coming into this event, and Big Uzera is the man that has led not just with his brain but with his aim as well.
Yeah, he was sick as well. Like, you know,
He was amazing.
individually, really stepped up. I mean, it is a nice thing, but it does make you wonder now what happens to that region, because it feels like there actually is brewing somewhere there. You can actually build a genuine super team contender. But if you're Furia, the main team with the money, right? Let's just assume Furia is going to be the one to do it. Realistically, minus Art plus Big Azera is the first move that has to happen. Let's not beat around the bush there. That is kind of a must. Minus Fallen, I still think, in my opinion, is the play. I think this guy...
It's weird, isn't it?
I hate to say it, but I think he's past it. I mean, we've been saying this for a long time. Even when he got signed, he was past it, and he's never proved that he
wanted to retire, didn't he?
He literally said, yeah, exactly. He himself said, I'm going to retire. And then he gets bought, was it 700K, I think was the figure? 600K, yeah, just a ridiculous figure. I mean, there's a lot of talent in that region, which would mean that they can build an actual team. I'm not trying to say NQZ would be the savior here, but that's just a young AWPer that comes off the top of my mind that maybe could do something. There's a lot of AWPers in Brazil that they can find, but I think changes have to be made. I think for me, if I'm rebuilding, the two first changes I make is, at the very least, Art, I think, has to go. I mean, I think he's been given more than enough time to try and do something, and it's not worked. And maybe Fallen. If the only caveat to that is if you maybe can't get Big Azera, then keep Fallen and make him IGL as well as AWP. Then I guess it's like, you know, it's the best of a bad situation. But I think the priority for Furia now would be to try and get Big Azera. Because, I mean, if he hadn't approved it 2 years ago, now he has. He's done better than them with way less. He's proven that he's not only so good at leading and actually nurturing a lot of youngsters, but he's actually good individually too. Much better, much more reliable than Art is on a big stage. So that's all the kind of proof in the pudding you need.
And the thing with Fallen as well is that he's so like weird to watch these days because his numbers really aren't that awful whatsoever. It's not like he's completely lost it, but you can just tell there's like just the air of...
It's the impact, isn't it?
It's the air of impact. Yeah. It's just not there. Like, he can play well. He had a few maps at the major which were okay, and like he played really well, I think, in the opening stage to come back from that 0-2. But yeah, it's just so strange, and he definitely doesn't have it against the top teams in the world, that's for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah, Art needs to go, and I mean, arguably, if they want to lose the godfather of Brazilian CS, Furia, he probably has to go as well.
I mean, they also made his transfer value in shirt sales, and it's not like they're like, you know, if they get rid of Fallen, they're like making a loss anymore. I'm sure in the merch sales alone, when Fallen joined, they probably recouped the vast majority of that 600K. So I don't think they need to hold on for it as like, oh my god, we're gonna lose. You know, what do they call it? You know, when it's like, do you cut your losses early or later? I forget what it's called, but there's a saying. It'll come to me.
So the sunk cost fallacy.
Sunk cost fallacy. That's what I want about. They're past that at this point, right? So just make the change, right? I feel like for me, he wants to retire. He said it a year ago. Let him go, man. Maybe legacy.
You just don't want to wait. You just don't want to waste this guy's Skyesports prime. You know, like he's still got it in him. And he was really keeping them involved in the opening stage, and frankly, was the only reason why they were going through. And again, he had a couple dips in form across these last few months that, like, you can already feel like that whole Skyesports prime rifle is like fading. And you just want to bottle that for as long as possible and get this org a trophy, man. Get them a legitimate trophy. I don't count Elisa as a real trophy, but this team
I do count
clearly has.
For Brazil.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Whatever. But it just disappoints me because, you know, you look at like the major winning championship like SKLG, and then you look at maybe Immortals after that. But after that, like, you have so many new gen talents that haven't won anything, but in a lot of ways are pioneering Brazilian Counter-Strike and showing that, like, you know, we could be better. If we were given the platform, we could be better than these rosters. But they just don't have that because I mean, I think one thing you can say is that the contracts for all these orgs are probably ridiculous, and it's probably why a shuffle hasn't happened.
There is a
But at the
reason
same
behind it,
time-
though. I don't know if you guys know about this. About like, do you know? So it's essentially it's the same reason why like footballers' contracts are pretty big. It's like to do with someone explained to me essentially something along the lines of it's a law in Brazil or in South America, something like that, where your buyout has to be a certain amount to do with like certain amount of like certain percentage of like your wage and your buying fee. I think is what I want to say. So that's the reason why their buyouts are insane. And like
Right.
it's similar to the reason like in Barcelona why Messi's buyout when he signed the new contract was like 1 billion because they had to make it like he's obviously getting paid so much and he got bought for no, he got bought for so much. It's something along like a percentage of his wage essentially. So that's why Brazil's things are all. I just thought like maybe that's just they're all kind of a bit insane and they're just driving them up. But it's actually like it's something to do with a law in Brazil that drives them all up. So they're all insane, but like equally insane. If that makes sense.
I guess that law then is somewhat contributing to the fact that Kei Serato might be spoken about then in the future in the same breadth as now Tabston is, who never left, never went to an
Yes.
international project. He's at that level now already for me, to be honest. Like I think he's like got 1 year left. I really feel like of his prime. I don't know. It's a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
It's got to be quite satisfying either Liquid though, looking back at it and being like, we could have saved you, so to say, and then here you are now
I
rotting
guess,
away. But then Liquid didn't make it, so
yeah, exactly.
Liquid
are
I
bad.
mean,
yeah.
I think if Liquid made it, then we could have that convo. But
Yeah.
they're probably just like, fuck, we don't have a tournament to play now for like months.
Yeah.
And, I mean,
Well,
honestly, that's
well,
just a
I'll talk
bummer.
about not making it, Annie. Complexity 2-0 to 2-3. Thoughts?
I mean, I saw the writing on the wall as soon as they went 2-0 that like they're not gonna have an easy matchup to get there, and yet still they were nearly there for almost all of the series, bar the Mouse one. I
Yeah.
thought they were the better team against Vitality. I think Vitality deserved to
Yeah.
lose that game. Complexity lost that game
Yeah.
more than anything, and I don't know, that Anubis game, there were so many instances where they had them right at the jugular, but they kept going in on flames, and their splits on A just did not look good.
He was unreal, by the way. It has to be said. On A,
I mean,
locking it down.
Took
Yeah,
over
yeah.
Zywo being unwell.
Yeah.
Like
For
yeah.
sure. But I mean, at that point, I don't know. They didn't try to split into B. They didn't try to just straight up B execs. And they got 7 CT rounds, and they should have just closed it after that.
Yeah.
So honestly, to me, it sucks, but I'm honestly really happy with what they showed. I think it just, the fact of the matter is there's too many good teams in CS right now,
Mm-hmm.
and they just couldn't keep up. Like it sucks, but I mean, you're gonna draw FaZe, Vitality, and Mouse, who are all like good enough to make the final at this tournament. Like, fair fucks.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I think a lot of people fell back on was talking about JT getting single-digit kills in a series. That was pretty rough.
Yeah.
However, the whole team
I
didn't
mean,
play
they all
well.
got farmed. They all got farmed. against
Exactly.
Mouse. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like, a lot of people fell back on that. And, and obviously with Messi also saying, we're not making any changes. That's the right call, right? What changes would they even make anyway, right? I think the only real talking point that I think a lot of people have had is minus Holzerg. That's been the one for a while, just because of his inconsistencies. But then again, Holzerg's the only reason they're at the major. In the RMR, so many rounds, he individually clutched. He put off like 3 different 1v3s in match point scenarios, and he did it against Liquid. He did it when they were pushing towards that final day and they were kind of on the brink of elimination. So like, yeah, I mean, people keep saying him, but then also as well, it's like, for who, right? Like, who is there at the moment? I can't think of any tier 2 AWPers that are like, for example, like when we had like Wonderful playing in Sprout, right? It was like, this guy he should not be here. He should be playing tier 1, and now he is. I don't think there is anybody that they can pick up, basically. There isn't an inherent gamble that is kind of unproven, proven at a tier 1 level. I can't think of anybody that. So people keep saying minus Holzerg, but offering 0 solutions as okay, but who do they pick up?
I only have one solution, and unfortunately, it's a solution that has, one, not shown any good form whatsoever in CS2 yet, and 2, has been out of action in terms of LAN for a long time, and that's OC.
Nah,
Doesn't feel it, does it? Doesn't
I
feel
think
like
the thing
it.
is, right, is that you need is the environment that Halzberg brings. It's kind of like a double-edged sword where like he brings a lot of energy to the team, but he can
Yeah.
also like bring them down pretty hard.
Mm.
But I always think about like, you know, sometimes on paper you might have a better team, but you might ruin the kind of synergy that these five players have because you just change a piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what worries me the most about saying minus Halzberg because yeah, at first blush I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense to just take him out because I think his inconsistencies are there and sure he's clutching up, but like theoretically you could get somebody more consistent, but
Yeah.
that might require more resources to take away from somebody like an Elige who for all intents and purposes is the identity of that team, and I don't want him to lose any spots or any roles on the team. Like I need him to be in the forefront making aggressive plays, and I'd rather have a more like a less stats hungry opper like Halzerk instead, and maybe he's more of that clutch player for you. So I think it's fine. I mean, I think the biggest issue that I had with him in this tournament is that Leeds just disappeared in the big games. Like I think against Vitality, he was like really bad. And even then they were still in it. So maybe that changes when they get into another big game scenario, but get that really sucked to me that he was like single digit kills at like the end of the first half against Vitality.
But let's talk about the positives. You know, we've touched on Brazil, we touched on NA. Let's talk about the positives. And another spot for Americas in towards next major, Shanghai major, which I think is the real big one, of course. You know, they'd lost it coming in towards this one. It meant it was, you know, considerably tougher to get to the major for the region. Also meant, you know, basically, you know, we were talking about that final day where it was one of Complexity or Liquid. Now there's a good chance that, you know, next year we won't really have those issues. And also not even just Americas, but Asia too. Mongols individually did so well that they've gifted another spot to Asia. So realistically, probably see the likes of ex Greyhound now. I forget that they've gotten Jeeves. Yeah, Jeeves. There is rumors. Just touching this quickly, just because we mentioned them. Rumors that Talon Esports, massive organization coming out of
PSG.
Coming out of Southeast Asia. I want to say they're based in the Philippines. I don't know if that's exactly true.
I believe so.
Yeah, they are humongous. They're a partnered org in Valorant. They're in a bunch of other esports. They've got mega money behind them. Like you said, partnered with PSG. We know PSG are
big league team as
well. Exactly. So they have buckets full of money, and they want to build some level of a super team. Is the rumor? You got to take this with not just like a grain of salt, but, you know, the ocean's worth, because this is a Harumi tweet. So basically don't trust it. But, you know, essentially what he's saying is they want to build some sort of Aussie super team, including JKS, which if you take the core of Greyhound plus JKS, that's actually a pretty decent team. The only caveat I want to say to that is, does JKS even want to go back to Australia? I don't think he does.
I don't think he does. Yeah, that's the main issue, right? But
yeah.
I mean, touching back on the format, I think it's really nice for Americas because we get to get rid of the double elimination Swiss bracket, because of the extra spot. So that removes that whole like horseshit format that we had at the Americas Armor this year and last year, where like I don't think it's fair to just eliminate a team based off of just 2 losses when they have a little bit more to give. And then I think the Asia thing is also great because now after all of this we get to remove the LCQ, which I like from one standpoint for EU, but I don't know. I don't think that we need it in the game personally.
I hate the LCQ. I think as well. There's like these, especially the teams that are in week A. It's so rough. You have to sit around for a week. I mean, it's all, you know. You get to, I guess, you know, prac and scrim hard or whatever for a week and be really fresh coming into the LCQ. But I don't know. I always never liked the LCQ. It's exciting in terms of like actually watching it, but what you want is essentially a system where it is that pure kind of Buchholz Swiss system that works well, that just perfectly as the team's going through. And if I'm right in saying now it does. The only question I don't know is how it's going to work for Asia for that third team. I don't really know how that's going to work.
I don't know if they can do the double elim anymore, right? Like that would be odd. So I mean, who knows?
They might have a version of an LCQ or something like that, or something similar to the Americas one we had this time.
All I want is just revamped formats for like all of them, like all the, or at least the seating needs to be fixed. I think that was my main issue. Is that,
and then the fact that
because
go on,
Yeah, because I mean, I thought for this major opening stage as well as legend stage, the seating was near perfect, and I think every matchup was completely fair. Like, I think that the reason why we got the bracket that we did was because the seating was so good originally,
Yeah.
right? But they changed the seating only after the RMR was over, and I would have much rather they have done that for the RMR as well, so we could have gotten all the teams that we needed at the
Yeah.
major itself. But
The
I don't
seeding
know.
was
I
from
think that
December 2023.
which
That's
is
how
brutal.
it's so long ago. Like it completely screwed over so many teams. And then just to like really rub salt in the wound, they updated the Valve seedings 3 hours after we finished broadcast for the Americas. Like, come on, man. Like, if you can do it, like, you know, relatively quickly like that, like, realistically, it can't be that hard because it's surely just an automated system, right? Of like, of Valve's ranking. It kind of just writes itself automatically. So why could they not have just done it in the month, you know, from the start of the year or even post Kato? Like, I think it ended up screwing teams where it shouldn't have. Like, I mean, people were very right in saying it, but like having a qualification game via seeding, which was one side Liquid Complexity and then the other side MAT Legacy, is like just like that should never be the case. It should always be that teams like Liquid and Complexity basically avoid each other until they absolutely have to, and in that case they didn't, right? So I think it was scuffed, and I think I can't remember who the first game was. It was Pain versus somebody else. Because MAT Legacy was the middle game, and then Liquid Complexity was the first one. I can't remember who the first. I think it was Pain versus somebody. Odic? Pain Odic? I think it was Pain Odic.
Pain Odic was yeah. That was what it was.
Yeah, so you know you have Pain Odic, MAT Legacy, 4 teams that are like, you know, whatever. Obviously, you know, 2 of them are actually ended up doing quite well in that of Pain and Legacy, but it does make you question as well.
Not fair.
I know.
Straight up.
I know. So, but you know, a lot of the issues that we've actually had with the major, they are actually all Valve issues, right? I mean, even the most recent one that is kind of the talk of the town, the Jane PC crash. People keep wrongfully kind of saying like, you know, PGL, I can't believe you've done this, not knowing that it's just a pure NVIDIA drivers thing, which has happened to like anybody who's played CS has crashed at some point. I'm so scared of alt tabbing now because I can never tab back in. I just like instinctively have just stopped tabbing. Does make me wonder why Jane was tabbing, but in the end, who really cares, right? Like, you know, it's just it's such a brutal time for such an error to happen. But a lot of the onus has to be on CS2 to fix it. Or another one that is being spoken about is on Anubis, where they were like jumping up onto heaven, and I think it was Fame couldn't get up. That fucking happens all the time. It never happened in Go. Yeah. Mirage, good luck trying to get onto fucking Palace, man. Jumping up on those boxes, it's near impossible. Triple when you're
jumping onto Dumpster.
Oh my god, it's so fucking, it's so frustrating. And then the thing that like makes it even more annoying, this happens to literally every player, to the point where people are just so sick of talking about it. And then the first thing we see is the CS2, the CS devs or whatever on Reddit being like, we can't replicate this. Lies. I know that's a lie because it happens literally every time. So there's no way you can't replicate that.
It's surely like they must just like not know how professional players and players who have played the game for 8,000 hours maybe, how they like crouch on next to ledges like that. It's like crouch into the very corner, whatever your crouch key is, and then you jump while holding the key to just go on the ledge quietly. And it's exactly that one which just glitches you on it and then off it again. And as you saw, what compounded it for Fame was that he fell off of it and made noise on the ledge, which is even worse. And obviously like the reaction from Harry and Hugo just said it all. Like it was the most painful. Oh, they already had a nightmarish situation in the previous map, and that just compounds it all. Like G2 were up like what, like 7-0 at that point.
I think so.
Yeah, it
was
horrible.
Winnable too. 1v2.
Yeah, it was very winnable. I feel awful for VP. But you can say it is what it is, and shit happens, and that's exactly the attitude that James has put forth, and bless him, his interview was amazing. He's he's a role model, honestly, at this point for everyone who should be in that situation. But yeah, it's very, very unlucky. Maybe not as unlucky because there is previous of this happening, so you could say, why is it not fixed? But yeah, I mean, for it not to be fixed pre-major is wrong.
Yeah.
If it's not fixed post-major, then I don't know what to say.
Yeah. Can I just touch on that James thing as well? That is exemplary, right? In terms of a losers into an elimination interview. That is how you do it. You're the captain, you're the IGL, you're the main man on a team, and you take the onus upon yourself to do what is a tough interview. That is, a role model of a leader. And, we say this while looking at Blame F, right? I'm not going to forget them sending Stare to the dogs. That's weak-willed, right? But James doesn't have that. I mean, this guy continues to show what he's all about. So, I mean, I feel for VP. Being realistic as well, it looked very much like they were going to take that 2-0 because money was going to be pretty rough for G2 that final round if they didn't go for a save.
I mean, they were going to.
They were going to, and they got the kill.
Hooksy called a save before they got a kill. Yeah. It's so sad. I mean, it's crazy. I think it was literally a round before that happened. I made a little tongue-in-cheek bait tweet saying, Norbert is better than Nico in big matches these days. And then a round later, divine intervention.
Oh, man. It's so unfortunate. These things never should happen at this sort of stage. And I think in a weird way, it's a good thing that they are happening. I know this sounds kind of crazy, but more just because it's such a big stage and because it's such a big thing, it just has to force Valve's hand, right? We're getting crashes on a regular basis, and this is now on, top level spec PCs. All the PCs of PGL have all been done, to the highest end, but they've also all been checked over by Aframanzef, I think is how you pronounce his name, the PC optimizer guy. He did every single one of the PCs before going to the major. So they've all been professionally checked at the top level. It's not that side. It's Valve's side. And the fact that this is happening at a big stage, I guess, just forces their hand. Hopefully is the main thing. But who knows?
At least it didn't happen in a major final,
Don't say it too early.
Hang on.
I'm saying that at least, the fix could come in between now and Thursday.
Got a couple of days.
There is room for them to do that. And so, I mean, I think if you're Valve, I'm sure that's a priority now because you realize that if it does happen in a major final, then your game is going to get dragged through the fucking mud at that point. Yeah. And, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, there's going to be videos on videos on videos, and you will not be able to escape that. And I think in the modern day, with how video games are perceived and how opinions can change on certain games in an instant, you don't want to fall into that loop either. This is like a very quick way to do it. So I really hope that we do get a fix by Thursday. And then in my eyes, I kind of forgive them because, at that point, maybe the playoff scene is fine, but for now it's just get your shit together, man, before Thursday, because
please.
Should we talk about Thursday now?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's move on to the playoffs and talk about that. So heading in towards the playoffs, big thing is first of all just how stacked it is. It's good to see, man. Especially going off the back of Blast. Blast was a little underwhelming. Yeah, it was a little underwhelming in terms of the teams, just the name value, let's call it, heading into it. This is not the case. Cloud9, Vitality, Spirit, FaZe, Eternal Fire, Na'Vi, Mouse, G2, all big organizations. I guess technically speaking, the smallest quote-unquote team there is Eternal Fire, and that's saying something because they, for me, have really solidified themselves as a tier 1 team the way they've been playing. There is no tier 2 dark horse upset teams in this, which is Varsity into Blast, because there was 4 out of 8 at Blast were kind of these upset teams. So this for me is super sick. Honestly, it feels like one of the more exciting playoffs in terms of the name value we've had in a long, long time.
There were so many bogey picks in so many different playoffs for the last few years.
Yeah.
But I think, as you said, Eternal Fire really deserves their spot here. I don't even think that I consider them a tier 2 team anymore.
No, I don't. No.
Just the quality of CS that they're putting on at a tactical level already, to me, is leaps and bounds of any Eternal Fire team that I've seen before, or honestly any tier 2 team that I've seen that have made it to the major. Compared to Thomas or SDY or honestly Kicksand was pretty good, but if I had to compare it to those IGLs, I look at Major and I'm like, he's calling way better at this point.
Agreed.
That I'm very, very impressed with Eternal Fire as a whole. I have them going through to the semi because I think that Zantara's, Wicadia, Woxic, who can be a big game player, you've got a recipe for success. And these players have shown that they can hang around tier 1 and really succeed. It's really just a question of can they play in the Royal Arena, right? But then again, Na'Vi also have some players that might crumble under the pressure.
I mean, that's the reason I picked them as well to beat Na'Vi. I mean, like, the performance of Immer at this major has been very, very criticised, and for good reason. He's been incredibly low par, playing good positions on some CT roles in maps as well, and not really putting up the numbers whatsoever. It's really been, for Na'Vi, obviously, considerably JL and Wonderful. It's been those two, that duo, that is doing so much work for them. So if they can show up on stage, if Eternal Fire are not ready, like you say, you said to me the other day, Annie, that kind of the new team that makes major playoffs in the last few majors kind of has been, the trend is that they don't really get affected too much, and they do play to relatively good to the best of their ability. And I agree that, Zantares, Wicadia, Calyx incredibly reliable actually now as well. Woxic was very poor at the beginning of CS2. He's completely turned it around. He looked like he was on the way to being dropped again on the historical Eternal Fire merry-go-round that this team used to have. And he's turned it around beautifully, playing very well. Major can frag as well as lead brilliantly. So I think that trio, and with Woxic, I think Wonderful trumps Woxic, but I think Zantares, Wicadia, and Calyx right now, that trio is better than Immer and Bit, for example.
I think the main guy that I want to give my flowers to is Major. I think what he's done, not only in terms of the calling, but actually his fragging. This guy went from being actually such a, he was like a tungsten anchor on this team in terms of the numbers, and now is
a liability, man. He was a liability straight up.
Let them down so often, and now is like, I think if I'm right in saying he's like the highest rated IGL. I saw StatsMeister do a post about it, but I'm pretty sure in terms of rating,
I'll look for you.
He's the high. Yeah, I know StatsMeister did the tweet, and I'm pretty sure he was the highest rated IGL.
Like it, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
I gotta give him his credit because he's not only calling a brilliant game, because you can see them just piecing apart teams with ease, but it's actually individually how reliable he's become. There's now no weaknesses on this team. I used to always kind of see Major as this weakness, who was somebody who kind of felt like he was a little bit past it maybe. But I just think it just proves the Turn of Fire in the changes left, right, and center, that just keeping a bit of a stable team and actually working on it has made something really, really special here. So yeah, for me, I've got them going through. But why don't we go game by game and say who we think is going to go through? So,
okay.
So Cloud9, Vitality. We'll start there. I personally, I've gone Vitality here. I've gone them taking out Cloud9, and I've gone off the onus that Zywoo will be better. He's going to be recovered from his illness, and they're going to be back.
I think it's probably the hardest quarterfinal to pick out of all of them, because you don't know what Vitality you're gonna get, right? You could have the Zywoo that comes back, but he could disappear. I mean, we had Spinks disappear in a couple of series as well. You had Flames having to carry this team, or Mezzy trying to carry this team via clutches. Like, it's not sustainable, but they made it here, and I think that's the most important thing, because all of these players have already lifted trophies before with this iteration. You think about the World Finals, you think about the Fall Finals, sure, you can call them Banana Cups, but you have that experience of actually lifting the trophy, and that to me is a little bit more important than that, say, of Cloud9, where sure, you've had that increase in performance from a player like Axile, but at the same time, you have to think about how he's struggled in playoff performances previously, even when he was in good form. And then you think about, they have the opping problem, they have a map pool problem, they have inconsistencies with their core. So you know what the level you're going to get out of Cloud9. It's just, can Vitality overcome the bar that Cloud9 sets? And I think they can, just because it's in the Royal Arena. That's my main thing, is that, like, I think just the fact that they have that, like, big game pressure, they rise to the occasion and they overcome Cloud9. But my heart of hearts wants me really badly to get that Zywoo Donk semi. That's really what this is all about.
Same here.
No. It's a travesty we haven't seen Vitality versus Spirit, yeah. I think it's something that needs to happen. And don't get me wrong, I really do want that to happen. But I've actually picked Cloud9. And my reason for that is that even though Zyru could be better, if you look at historically at his performances at Majors, Blast was obviously his crowning glory, but it was against 3 tier 2 teams pretty much in playoffs. Kato, Legends, Berlin, quarterfinal, Stockholm, quarterfinal, Antwerp, Legends, Rio, Legends. It's only one major where he's pushed past that, and it was against 3 teams they should beat every day of the week.
Yeah.
So I'm actually not that confident in Vitality. It's not just the Zyru factor. They've looked very fallible in general overall recently. Yeah. Apex has looked pretty inconsistent in terms of like the style he's trying to implement, at least the updated style he's trying to implement, with how things are sort of merging. Flames has had to go above and beyond to save them on a couple of occasions. Is that sustainable? Spinks is there, but I'm not sure if he'll be there in playoffs. He can blow hot and cold. So yeah, I think Mezzy is still a question mark, no matter how much I love him. I think Cloud9, with what they have right now, Axel is on a bit of a resurgence. He's learning his roles. He's playing super well. If he keeps his form up, I think Cloud9 take it.
Okay, that'd be interesting then. I definitely still feel like this is, without a doubt, the hardest of the rest. Then heading into the second one, we've got the replay of the Kato finals. And for me personally, I think it'll be just the same result. I can't see a world in which Spirit loses. At the moment, Spirit do just look unstoppable. This is a side who are breezing through teams like it's nothing, right? And I think this is the big thing. 3-0 in that elim stage. They're coming in towards this, where FaZe aren't exactly 100%. Let's not beat around the bush. I think Spirit should make this look pretty comfortable. And then regardless of who it is next, you got the talk of, if it is Spirit who make it through, you've got either Vitality, where we get to see the Donk versus Iwu, who everyone wants, or on the other side, that replay of the C9 matchup as well, which obviously was so easy for Spirit. So I mean, either way, this looks like a very decent kind of position to just make a run to the finals. But I'm all in on Spirit here.
I'm with you. I think it's I'm very interested about this matchup, because if you know Kerrigan, he's definitely the type of person, if he loses a matchup, he will go back and have a really concrete game plan to bring into the next best of 3, be it the veto, be it the defaulting, be it the strategy. And I do think that they might even try something fancy like floating vertigo or something like that, or leaving it open. So I don't think it's going to be easy for Spirit in this matchup. But the fact of the matter is, they just have the better system. They have the better players. They have the better calling in terms of like just the system as a whole. Like, I trust Chopper system so much right now.
Yeah.
And the amount of setup that they give to Donk, that you can't think of a player like that on FaZe right now, because Rops is looking very pedestrian at this major. And he's really got to turn things around, because that was the reason why FaZe was elite in the first place, is that you had Rops being the best player in CS2, but he's had a pretty average major so far, and that's what's kind of upsetting to me.
I'll just reinforce your point there. Rops has got a 1.09 rating in this stage so far. I was just looking at earlier, you mentioned the highest rated IGL thing, right? And just to finish that, Major 1.2, Jame 1.16, Big Azera 1.15. So Major is the top of that one. And Rops is lagging behind those 3 players, and players like Boomich, Halzerk, Chopper, like even Chopper's higher rated than Rops, or same rating as Rops. So it kind of tells the tale. And I think the thing about Spirit too is that it's not just Chopper's system. Chopper individually is so good right now.
Yeah.
He's getting so many important kills so often. You can rely on him just as much as you can rely on the others. And we know that Zontix is incredibly reliable. We know that Shiro will just Shiro. So yeah, I don't think FaZe will be able to handle it this time. We all know that Arena FaZe is different. They all ramp up. But in Kato, they still got blown out of the water. So I think the same answer.
Yeah. There we go. And then that will set up, even, it doesn't matter what semi-final it is, it'll be an absolute kind of banger coming in towards that one. Go head over to the lower bracket. A 10 of Fire taking on Na'Vi. We kind of already touched on this, so we can kind of just briefly go with who we're going. I'm going to 10 of Fire here. I think, are we all a 10 of Fire right off the back of it?
Yes, I'm going to 10 of Fire.
I think there's just too many question marks around Na'Vi. Like you already kind of touched on Immer a little bit, but I just think the core of a 10 of Fire, just that tad better, or considerably better. And then Mao's G2. Now this one as well actually is quite tough, because Mao's
looked very good in that first stage. Yimfat, highest rated player in the elim stage, 1.7. He got over 4 maps played, 2 best of 1s and a 2-0. Very, very, very well played. Zershin as well was second, I'm pretty sure, of like a 1.53. So yeah, like nuts in terms of the stats of those two. Shuhei's playing and calling really well. Everything's going to plan so far for Mouse. And G2, there is the asterisk kind of above them in the sense of, should they even be here, right? If they'd won that post plan and if VP had got to 12, would they have been able to close out 13-11, or would they have been able to do it in OT or all of the rest? However, the main thing is that they are here, and now we get to see G2 in a playoffs. We get to see Nico and Manesi play on the big stage, and this is where they kind of do their best work. And for me, for that reason, I'm actually going G2 here.
Okay.
My problem with G2 right now is that Nico isn't there. Like
Exactly.
I don't
he's
think he's
admitted it
taken
himself.
over. Yeah, he hasn't been able to take over a game in like months, it feels like.
Yeah.
And that's what's really, really upsetting to me, because before, you had problems with Hooksy and his fragging, and you had issues with their map pool and all that, but they would still get to finals because Nico, Bonasi, and Hunter would be such a stable core, or even JKS that would chime in. But you don't have JKS anymore, and Hunter's kind of falling off in terms of performances as well. Sure, he's a big game player. I think he might be able to step up there for them. But of course, the most important thing is if Nico's form is there or not. And if it's not, especially on a map like Anubis or a map like Vertigo or even a map like Ancient, where he has these huge fall off in numbers, that's where I see like Mao's just winning the veto outright and then trying to take over that way. Even though I think that these stats are overblown, I do think Jimmy's numbers are going to come down. Zershin's numbers are definitely going to come down, just because the nature of their roles and the fact that they will die a lot more against top opposition. You're not going to get that against a team like after you played Complexity and Ecstatic. I don't think those are really fair assessments. But I do think that Shuhei has really won me over with the fact that he's been able to integrate Broland into this roster. I was still very like, I don't know, because sure, like there was moments where Broland looked really good, but there was moments where he looked very average. But I think he's been able to maximize every single player in their role, and he's just figured it out, man. I'm really negative on Torzy as a player, but even he's been really, really solid in terms of his positioning.
Agreed.
I'm sold on Mouse, really, to take it all the way, at least to the final. I think that G2 are just going to get outclassed by systems alone, really.
I completely agree with you. I think Maus right now are looking so much more solid as a system, like you say, than G2. G2 are... Every time you watch G2, it's like watching like a home hopeful, or like a British sport home hopeful, because you never know whether they have the ability to do it. You're excited for them and you want to see them do well, but it's the plucky Brit syndrome of, oh, they're gonna fail, oh, this is gonna happen. It's every feeling I get when I watch G2 is there's something around the corner that's gonna just be an absolute nightmare for them. And Mao's I don't feel like Mao's have that right now. Don't get me wrong, I think Munazi clears Torji every day of the week. I think he's going to have a superb playoffs, however G2 perform. And that's exactly what we've seen from him in every game G2 have played really of late. But just the other pieces for me, Mao's are just so much cleaner than G2. As you said, it can change in playoffs for sure. But I rely on them so much more now than I do G2.
Okay, so I'm the only one going G2. We'll see. We'll see how it pans out. I'm just maybe banking on the hopefulness of seeing something along the lines of,
it can happen. Don't get me wrong.
It can.
Like,
Yeah.
There could be a very real world where I saw you in your pick'ems. You put G2 to go all the way through, right, to the final.
Just final, exactly. Yeah.
And I actually really do think that there is a world where that can just happen. Like, I mean, if Modesty and Nico wake up, it can actually, they can just run over all of these teams. Like,
I mainly want to see Hunter wake up, right? I think if Hunter wakes up and joins that group of where he's actually like, back to being a top 20 player in the world, then I think they have a chance. Even if Nico's still not, even if Nico doesn't take over games, I think Monetti does enough in that sense. The biggest thing for me, as much as it pains me to say, is that Nex is actually playing quite well. He's actually putting up numbers.
He's not bad.
I'm still against the Nexa move. I still much prefer kind of JKS, and there's been nothing to prove me otherwise. However, I do just think it is a world that if Hunter's able to come alive, then maybe who knows. But we'll see, man. I think also part of me is just hopeful for the likes of kind of having like a G2 Spirit final. I think that would just be really sick. Maybe a little bit more than having like a Spirit Mouse final, just in terms of like name value. Like I'd love to see Nico in a final again, right? You know, I was there at Stockholm 2021. It was, you know, unfortunate for him, but obviously great for Navi. But yeah, I want to see. I want to see Nico on the big stage again. I think a lot of this comes down to just personal biases at this point. Of like, I want to see the best finals.
That's the thing though. Like, we're picking Mouse, you're picking G2, you're the outlier, but we're not. Absolutely, this can happen. They won Kato and Cologne last year. Yeah. We know they've got a different team now. We know they have this weakness. But they're finding a way to integrate Nexter in well. As you say, in the roles he's playing, he's actually doing quite well, and he's getting some good numbers and important kills in important times as well. But yeah, I'm probably going with a Spirit Mouse final. As you say, maybe that's not the most exciting one for many people. Maybe they want to see a G2 there. But considering Mal's recently were the most recent team to actually do one over on Spirit, that's what makes the final so interesting to me, to see if they can do the double, basically.
Okay. And I guess we're all kind of agreeing then it would be like sort of Eternal Fire taking on one of Mal's or G2. Whoever of Mal's or G2 it is wins that game against Eternal Fire, goes to the final, and Spirit win the other side. So there we go. And then I think we're all in the agreement to Spirit win it. Is that where we're going?
I'm going with that.
It's really hard to talk against them, man. Like
there's been nothing to say elsewise. Elsewise, right?
You know, if they didn't win Kato, I would bring question marks. I think it would be really hard to do the pick'ems this time, or at least to pick a champion. But them winning that trophy, it lifts all of the pressure off of a player like Donk. It removes pressure off of players like Chopper, Shiro as well, who's been having fraudulent playoff talks for ages. All of that is just gone because now they had to beat FaZe as well, which is like the biggest gatekeeper land trophy team probably in modern day Counter-Strike. So that like even all the intangibles are in their favor, and that's the issue. Is like you can't talk your way out of them losing, other than like Donk chokes, which like. There's no signs that he is. Like, it's not possible. Which
keeps getting better, which is annoying. Yeah. Right? He just every time it's like, oh, well, maybe he can't do it against the big names, and then he does, and then we're like, oh, for fuck's sake, like this is it is actually getting ridiculous.
I mean, the thing is, there'll be nothing like Katowice probably ever again, but he'll still have his performances where he goes like 25 and 12 and stuff like that. Like he'll always be there, and he'll always get that. Recently, in the games I've watched of Spirit, he's getting his one. Like on poor games, for example, say a poor game where he's been like 15 to 19 or something like that. Yeah. He'll get his one in important situations nearly every single time. He'll get his entry, but he'll go down straight away. In Kato, he was getting 2 every time, 3 every time. It was ridiculous. That wasn't sustainable, which is why it won't be happening again. People will say, oh, Donk's fallen off, blah, blah, blah. You know what we're talking about. This is just a one-off incredible tournament, right? Yeah. He'll play well still. He'll still put up amazing numbers. As you can see, he's not exactly top of the leaderboard in terms of the stats, in terms of this major so far, but it doesn't matter. It's because the whole team is gelling so well.
Yeah. And also, at Kato, he actually legitimately had more multi-frags than he had single kills, which is like the most bonkers statistic ever.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's ever happened at Tier 1 before, where a guy's finished a tournament with more multi-kill rounds than single kill rounds.
Nico might have done it. at that.
Right. At the New York?
One. Yeah.
So on New York.
Possible. I'm not sure, but yeah.
It is just ridiculous, though. Like, so, yeah. We'll give him that. So that's what we're going to go for the major. Should we touch on the final few topics to see off the pod? I think the first one we'll do is talking about what has been actually probably the big talk of the town, which is the Falcons documentary, their RMR doc. It took up a lot of conversation over the last like week or so. People talking about, I mean, one thing in particular, of course, is the one particular conversation with Boros. I'm sure we've all watched it. I'm sure everyone at home has also watched it as well. Give me your initial thoughts on it. Where do you guys sit?
So for me, I guess I had a bit of a differing opinion. I think what I love about this is actually a really fascinating debate because it's a very 50-50 split opinion based topic here. I think a lot of people that you rightly pointed out, Neo, haven't performed in big, don't know what it's like to be a sportsman at the top of their game, don't realize that this is actually what it's like you do get criticized like that. I think the powerful team conversation, like it was there, that needs to happen is great. Those are the sort of conversations that need to happen all the time, to air your grievances, air your anger, tell a player how you really feel so you can move on past it. I think in the end, Boris actually took it kind of well in the video.
Yeah.
My angle is an odd one, that I feel as though releasing the video, or while being a fly on the wall and seeing the transparency, is amazing, while releasing the video gives even more ammunition to people who already wanted the project to fail anyway, the Falcons project, and that adds more pressure to the team and the management long term. Weird angle perhaps, but I suppose if you can't deal with that pressure, then you aren't up to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think my main issue with how people perceive this was like, before I even watched the video, I just wanted to see the reactions to it, and I swear to God, people act like they told Boris like kill himself or something. Like that's how I actually thought it was. I was like, what could they have possibly said? And I go back and I look at it, and it's like, yeah, they're like dogging him for making a mistake, but they're also trying to like big him up. They're like, look, dude, we expect a lot out of you, and we know that you can do it.
Yeah,
just show up. And I'm like, that's like probably the most simple way to like criticize someone without breaking them down completely. And
Sonic
I think
was like,
that's
you're
how
so sick, like we love you.
Yeah, like that's a pretty professional way to handle it. So I don't know what the bully, all these people that are saying that he was bullied is just outrageous, because
grow up.
You are playing with multiple major winners. You're playing with the winningest coach of all time, right?
Yeah.
You're playing with players that demand greatness, that have lifted trophies. You are the player that shouldn't even be here at this point. You know, there's a lot of onus on you to kind of perform, and they expect that out of you, right? And that I think that was like the big thing for me, was like, how would you not demand greatness out of each and every one of your players? That just screams to me that you don't want to be there at that point, or that you don't think it's worth it. But I agree with you, Travis. I don't necessarily know if stuff like this should be put out because people perceive it this way, right?
Yes.
I think it's my issue is that like the average esports fan is not conscious enough to understand that, like, yeah, these people all are here to win, and they do air out their grievances in this way, and they do talk about the game this way. And although they don't understand that, I think that it shouldn't be put out for them to see that at that point, you know?
It's strange, isn't it? Because we mentioned Zonic sort of being how what Zonic said. Everything Zonic said, the passion was there to see. It wasn't for the camera. You could tell it wasn't for the camera. He really meant it. He really had heart behind it. Everything he said I thought was absolutely fine. He bigged him up saying, we need you, Mo, we know you're good. Then I think the question mark that lots of people had was that every single other player then just piled on with basically the same point, which I felt like Boris was kind of being like, he gets it, you know, like one person said it, Sonic who said it, he's the man with the most voice power, you feel like, in that situation. Like Boris would get it, and the other players didn't need to pile on slightly, but at the same time, if they have something they need to say, that's why you do that round table meeting thing. That's what you do to relieve all that frustration. But as you say, it's a conversation that needs to happen, and it is great. Of course, it's very popular in sports documentaries to see all of that. I'm just not sure in this case, as we said, releasing it helps their own best interests in terms of public perception, but I'm sure they don't care about that. I know, Neo, you have, having played football a lot, you have a lot of thoughts on this.
Well, I think for me, there was a couple of things where I disagree with, I guess, like the main point. So one of the main points that a lot of people made is like, why have they done this, right? And so that's the first thing I disagree with. It's like, if they have made the conscious decision to do a video on their RMR run, the video on the starting of this project, they've already done 2 parts before this. This is the 3rd part. If they've already done, if they've made the decision, we are going to do this, they've got to be honest to it. And if you go 1 and 3 at an RMR, it's not going to be nice conversations. And this is the thing that I just think a lot of people don't understand. It's them releasing this is actually the most honest thing they could have done, because they very easily could have just cut this all out and it's all happy.
They did.
They did, but they're not all of it though, in all fairness. And even still, you can see them like, even on the bits they did keep in, it's still primarily, this was bad, we didn't do well,
which is honest, right? And I think the biggest thing is like a lot of people, it's like, I don't think there's any winning if you're Falcons here, because you get one side of it, which is like, if Falcons go into this with a super PR heavy angle on it and make sure there's nothing negative that goes through, and it's just, oh, we didn't play well, oops, see you guys next time, you know what I mean? Everyone will be like, that's not authentic, that's not real, and would have got onto them. But then they do it authentic, which is so refreshing to see and so nice to see, an actual authentic video where it's like, oh my god, we went 1-3, we're pissed off, and one player in particular actually fucked it for us by doing dumb shit. Like, I know Boris and like Boris a lot, and he'll admit, which he did admit, you know, when obviously all the conversation around it, he did fuck up. He's just had an incredible tournament at Kato, putting up some of the best numbers in a tournament where, you know, Donk's flying, but he individually had helped Falcons get to an actual competitive stage because of how good individually he was, and then changes his mouse the day before the tournament. Now, it's all well and good if you change like the actual, you know, the mouse and stuff. He spoke about his skates being rough and it felt weird, but then just change the mouse itself. But he changed the brand and model. That's such a big risk for no reason, right? You like these things make such a big difference. Same reason why, you know, you won't see football players who have never played in a certain type of boot then go wear the boots for a match day that they've never worn in training, because you just don't know what they feel like. You're going to get blisters. They're not going to feel nice. You don't know what feels comfortable. It's just like you don't change your tools without ever using them. So I can understand why Sonic was pissed off. But then it's the other things. Not fucking doing your NVIDIA settings before a game. That is inexcusable. Like you're given literally all day to do these settings. You can go in whenever you want and do them. And normally they go in about an hour before, do their NVIDIA settings, set up the keyboard and mouse, whatever. He hasn't done his NVIDIA settings and is mid-game doing them. And then what Madden spoke about, which ended up getting cut out of the documentary, was looking up donk settings in the tournament. Like, this is like beyond stupid, like, mistakes. Like, there's like, it's inexcusable. He forgot his
in-ears as well.
Forgetting your in-ears. Yeah. Like I love this kid. He's such a nice kid, Boris, in real life. But these are inexcusable mistakes, and I'm sure he'll admit it. Forgetting your equipment is like beyond stupid. Like, this is just the bare necessities. Also, it's in the fucking rule book. You have to wear them. Like, there's no. It's not like, oh, it's not a choice. Most of the rule books say you have to wear in-ears, and the headphones on top are just noise cancelling, right? So it is just like beyond inexcusable. But I think the setting one in particular, like, you've just played insane. Why are you then changing to donk settings? Who, first of all, donk plays some weird ass settings as well. They're not exactly normal. I don't know. Like, for me, I can fully understand why they got onto him a bit, because he is so crucial to the plan. Like, the rest of this team are not there for their firepower in a way. Like, you can't then look at individuals like Madden to try and carry a team, because he can't do it. He never has been able to do it. He has the odd pop-off game, but he's not a guy who can carry. Magisk, yes, maybe at one point he could, but not anymore. He's not the guy you look towards. He's a very, very reliable A anchor, but he's not the kind of person that you're looking to play hero roles and carry a team. Snappy's obviously not going to do it, and Sampaius isn't going to do it. Obviously, he does very good numbers with an orb, but you can't put him in a lot of these positions that Boros plays. He's the only one who can play these positions. He's so crucial to their game plan, and he's obviously, you know, making these really rookie errors. I don't know whether there's nerves. It also, for me, it's very clear that he's not comfortable in that team, and he wasn't comfortable in that team. It's four guys who get on with each other quite well, and one guy who doesn't. But yeah, I was reading the fact that when you're a player with a lot of talent, I think especially the more talented you are, when it's just raw natural talent, the way Boros has it, having people critique you that are of the level of Sonic and Magisk. You know, Sonic, the best coach of all time, no debates. Magisk, one of the best players of all time, no debates, just because their titles speak for themselves. When you have players like that critiquing you and that are actually trying to help you, that's only a good thing. Yes, you can talk about it being, you know, I think the biggest thing for me was just meet people like, oh, I can't believe Snappy and Sonic and Magisk could do this. You know, I thought they were so nice. You don't become some of the best players in the world by being nice. It's just no two ways about it. Like, if any of you have ever watched, like, you know, an all or nothing thing, you know, Pep Guardiola is cooking half of that team 90% of the time. Drive to Survive. Yes, the Jordan documentary. Every teammate he's ever played with fucking hates him, but he wins. Who cares? Kobe, Mamba mentality, all the rest. Drive to Survive. Anyone has a shit race? Bye, Danny Rick. You know what I mean? It's just like one of those things where you don't get to being the best in the world by letting these things slide, because they have to be mentioned. I think the only caveat I have to it, and this is something that
I saw a couple of pros mentioning, which I think is probably correct, is the time and place of the conversation. I think
1-1.
Yeah,
1-1. They just lost a phase. That was it.
Yeah,
right.
But I can. There's two sides to it. I think the timing is bad. I sit on the side that the timing is bad. That should be a post-tournament thing where it's like, why have you done this? I think maybe Zonic should maybe pull Boros aside alone and be like, mate, don't change your mouse. Do your settings, please. Like, we need you. But for me, the timing's rough because I think it just breaks the mental of Boros, and I think it did. It kind of makes sense why he just never really showed up, because why would you? Your mental's just not there anymore because you're not comfortable. But at the same time, it does need to be mentioned. But probably just individually by Zonic, he brings him aside or whatever. I think the reason why it was mentioned at that point, obviously Zonic mentioned it after a loss, but I think it's what they spoke about in the documentary was that was actually a very winnable game. They were up, they were leading against FaZe, and they were playing considerably better, and it fell apart. And I think it's probably just more venting the frustrations because they knew that game, they lost it. It's not that FaZe won it, it's that Falcons lost it. And then obviously what happened to them against Amcal was rough. I think by that point the mental was shot. But yeah, obviously I think there's no real right or wrong answer, but I think also there's one big thing that everyone seems to forget is that I think Falcons want these conversations. I think they want to be talked about. I think I think everybody's just falling for the bait, and I think I gotta respect Falcons, a social media team or the whoever it is. It's actually it's a really good documentary, but the biggest thing is people are like, I can't believe this got through. I can't believe not even one person saw this and was like, maybe we shouldn't include this. Moron. That they wanted this. They wanted you to talk about them. This is perfect. They have got so much traction over the last few days. That tweet's blown up. The documentary's got thousands of views. It has worked. Fundamentally, well and truly, everybody fell for the bait, hook, line, and sinker, because they didn't have to include it, but they've actively chosen to include it. So I just don't think people understand why the documentary was made. It's building Falcons as a brand in CS, which needs to be built.
Do you
as a villain, I think it's fine.
Yes,
I think they're all very aware that they want to be a villain in the scene.
Yeah, Thorin has mentioned it multiple times, and he is the king of this, right? He is somebody who is so good at being an expert in your industry and being as good as it gets when it comes towards knowledge. I don't think there's many people in the industry as good in terms of knowledge as Thorin. And he is always mentioned, you have to have villains because it creates storylines. It creates drama. It's so fucking boring if we have just goody two-shoes teams come through. And also, this is the same reason why we see teams like G2 and Heroic, now their social media teams are kind of playing into that a little bit. The no refunds that Heroic do, or G2, quite funny. They did like retweet of like an Nvidia tweet they did like 4 years ago, and we're like, thanks guys. Like, stupid things like that. Like that, playing that villain it's an exciting thing. It gains traction, whether it's, what did I say? Any publicity is good publicity. And I think, something that Thorin's mentioned time and time again, and he's spot on with it, because having villains is a good thing. And I think Falcons are more than happy to play into, because they're not going to win people over because of, just the whole narrative around Falcons, right? They're never going to win the vast majority of people over. So why not just play into it? Like, it's working.
Do you, one angle I thought of as well, of like, in terms of how Boros would feel about it, obviously he put a tweet out, and it was a tweet that like, I think most people could barely read or comprehend what exactly his point was.
A couple of commas, mate, please.
A crumb of comma, my brother, please. But yeah, I think, don't get me wrong, if I was on the end of what was going on, I'd feel like shit, but I'd also be motivated to fix what was wrong, and I'd know I need to suck it up and improve. However, do you think that releasing it as they did when Boros will be without a team is a little bit beyond the pale, as it might mean a lot of teams won't want to try him? Or do you think that's just whatever, have to deal with it? It is what it is.
I don't think teams are going to take that much into account, right?
Okay.
I think, they're mistakes, but if you're actually a good team or a good coach, you should be able to know that this is things that I can rectify pretty easily. You just set ground rules. And I don't think an actual, a team that Boros would even care about is going to be like, oh, well, actually, I don't think we're going to sign you because we saw in the Falcons documentary you forgot your in-ears. Yes, it's stupid, but, more often than not, they have team managers there for that specific reason anyway, and they always have backups around regardless. But I think a solid coach and a solid team with a solid structure wouldn't worry about that. They would look at what the type of player he is, and how he integrates into that team. And he is one of the most relentless entries going at the moment, and mechanically very good when he's on his day. And it's just, I think a team will probably see the positives over the negatives. I do think, however, he has been given his chances now. And, obviously Falcons didn't work. The tail end, or, kind of post Blast Paris Major, maybe it was a little bit kind of like, we weren't really sure what we're getting out of Boros because of his inconsistencies. People started to kind of figure him out a little bit in terms of how to play against that type of player, tail end of Monty kind of thing. Like, basically just hold your util, just let him take fights and just kind of 2v1 him and stuff like that. But I don't think, I mean, yeah, you could talk about how because they benched him, it's like, maybe it's like a little bit of a low blow. But I don't think a serious team's really going to take that much into account, right? Because,
fair.
More often than not, they do multiple trials and they do multiple interviews, and that's where they get their onus on what a player is like and, what he can do in the team.
Also, it's kind of expected that he's probably going to go to a tier 2 team now, and all of those rosters will more than likely value the mechanical brilliance of the player just so they can get that extra step to probably play a LAN or something like that. So I personally see that, like, he was never going to be taken on by another tier 1 org. That's just like obvious, because even Monty were like no strangers to like dissing him right after.
And they got so much better. They got so much better after he left because of the reliability of Bro, and everyone else raised their level, right? So.
Also, he could go back to Monty. They need players, and they need players of his caliber. I mean, they brought 2 academy guys up, but they don't have to keep them. Like, now he's benched. Monty actually feels like kind of a nice place for him to go back to. It's familiar territory. He's actually going to be given a lot of space. And the only downside for him is that they just don't have a structure at the moment. And I think minus SDY, that team is pretty useless kind of thing. But at least they're still a team that are pretty highly ranked in terms of ESL and HLTV and Valve rankings and all the rest. So it doesn't even feel like that bad of a step for him.
No, not at all.
And I think that's probably what's going to happen. It's either that or a team along those lines, like top 20, maybe top 30 team. Again, with the scene opening up to non-franchise leagues, it'll be great for him. So I think this is not the end of the road for him. But yeah, I do think that, like, still the documentary is still a bit odd to just release, period. But I like that they did it.
I love it. Like, don't get me wrong, it doesn't change my opinion that I think it's
we're missing
slightly...
drama, man. We're missing drama.
Exactly. It doesn't, don't get me wrong, I just doesn't I'm not upset that they released it, because I drama is just, that classic meme, just injecting it straight into your veins,
But it was high quality as well. It was actually a really well done documentary.
Yeah.
It wasn't the thing is, you see a lot of these now, like I don't really watch them anymore, but kind of like G2 and FaZe do them, or like Harrigan does them, and it's just like, kind of vlog style things. And for the most part, they're pretty meh. I don't really care about them. They're kind of boring. But this was like very high quality and came with good storylines in itself already. I mean, that's perfect. This is what the scene needs. Like, having this is gold dust to talent like ourselves if we ever get the chance to cast them, because it's like, ooh, it's always good. So I think Falcons knew what they were doing. Basically, they want to get traction, and this is a really good way of doing it. And it also means that every time they do another one of these documentaries now, the next one, whenever it is, everybody's going to tune in because they're going to wait to see what's next, right? So they hook, line, and sinker caught everybody. And I think that's the main thing that annoyed me when I saw the replies, is this is that everyone's fallen for the bait and not understood what's happening here. And then now Falcons are just looking at these replies and just laughing, because they know the next documentary, everybody's going to watch it to see there's another instance of something here. Is Boros mentioned? Now he's benched. All this. So, exactly. Or like, if they do anything to do with Simple, right? I mean, instant clicks.
These pros haven't got to where they are by worrying about public perception. Yeah. So
I can also say as well, if you're getting paid like 30, 40, 50 grand a month and you play shit, you deserve to be roasted a little bit. Let me not beat you around the bush here. You are getting paid people's yearly salaries and some a month, right? If you don't do your job and you're making bad mistakes, I'm not saying Boros is getting paid 50 grand a month. I highly doubt he was. But just for an example, he's getting paid probably at least tens of thousands a month. And if you do make mistakes, you do deserve to be told off, right? I mean, it is just core fundamental job. You're getting paid well enough that you deserve to be. The same way, the top level sports players who do, pretty bad mistakes do get hounded. It is just kind of how it is. In NFL, somebody drops a catch in a final drive in the fourth quarter. They are going to get roasted. They're going to get cut. They're going to get roasted. If you're playing an NBA game and you got a free throw to win the game and you miss it, you're gonna be roasted. It's simple things, right? Where I think coming down to it, like, it happens at all levels of sport, no matter who you are. I just think people treat esports people different to real sports stars. If that makes sense. They baby and coddle them when they're not realizing these are, for the most part, adults and incredibly highly paid adults as well. So yeah, man, I don't know. I just think like the way in which the average esport fan looks at these sort of things is annoying, because you wouldn't really get this in traditional sports. If somebody plays shit in like a football game, they do get roasted, right? It's just as simple as that. I'm a Liverpool fan. I have to deal with Darwin Núñez being dog shit half the time and then great the other half. But when he is shit, he does get roasted because he misses sitters. So it's just one of those things. Like, I just think esports players maybe get coddled a little bit too much in terms of like, oh my God, no, why would you tell him off? That's so mean. Just grow up. Just grow up, basically.
It's so mean.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah, I know. These adults, grow up. Let's move on to the final few bits. We've got 2 more bits. We'll talk about, just briefly touching on the Skyesports Masters. Now, was on track to be quite an exciting little tournament here. It was going to be 350 grand LAN in India. I want to say, was it Mumbai specifically?
Pune.
Oh, Pune. Okay, there we go. It was going to be, hella exciting. It was looking very good. And bit by bit, as the weeks have gone on, it's slowly got, unfortunately, worse and worse for Skyesports. And now it's still 350 grand, but it's an online tournament. Liquid have withdrew. I don't blame them. LANs is what Liquid need right now. They don't need online tournaments. Yes, the money is obviously very good, and actually the teams are okay, but it's no longer the tournament it is. It actually kind of does feel like a bit of a tournament of sort of has-beens. You've got NIP, who have 3 players. They've brought Maxter up to the main roster. They're probably going to bring 2 more academy players unless they announce a couple of players coming up. They got Big, another team that is just kind of whatever, meh. OG, don't give a shit. Aurora, definitely don't give a shit. This team has not been anything for ages. Fours, same boat. And then Ent is the only one that I'm actually like, okay, it's cool to see Ents playing here. I don't really know who else is going to be that last invited team, but judging by the fact that Liquid have withdrew, that it might not be anything too special. So yeah, I don't know. This tournament was really exciting for me. But then now it's an online tournament that overlaps with IM China. I just think most people are going to watch IM China now at this point, because it's not this like exciting new LAN of a new TO in the scene. Yeah, I don't know.
It's brutal for me because I really would have liked to have this TO in the scene, because they have a lot of money. They've been putting a lot of time into the circuit as well to build it up. I think the close qualifier teams that they invited were good teams as well. I don't know. I thought it was a good initiative, but yeah, this is like, I don't blame Liquid at all. They have a chance now to play the Esports World Cup qualifiers and play that tournament, which, look, I mean, you can say what you want about the ethics of the tournament itself, but the fact of the matter is it's a very prestigious tournament.
Yes.
You have elite level competition there. It's going to be ESL white labeled run, so there's a lot to really like about it if you're Liquid as an org. So I think they'll be happy to play that tournament out, and it sucks that Skyesports kind of falls apart here, but hopefully, I really hope that they have enough money and runway to run another event and run a LAN, because I think it would be really cool to just have all these players in India and helping that region just via scrims and practice for some of these teams, because I don't know if you guys saw the small little LAN they did. It was like a 4-team one.
Yes,
but the Indian roster made it to the lower bracket final and upset Bad News Kangaroos, which, they're not that great of a team, but it's like still
a region,
pretty decent result. Yeah.
If you tier the regions, you would put them maybe above them, wouldn't you? So
yeah. So I think there's work to be done there, and I'm glad that there's support from Skyesports, but it's just a bummer. Like, the timing is also just awful, because you're trying to run a LAN in 2024. It's going to be really hard. Maybe 25, it's a lot easier because there's space in the calendar. But for right now, it's just like you're kind of like shit out of luck, and this just doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah, it's also a shame just because I actually liked what the TO were doing in terms of just being a new big name TO in the scene. I really do hope they get a chance to do something like this in the future properly. You know, an actual LAN and prove themselves as kind of a reliable other TO, especially with things opening up. It could mean good opportunities for them. It's a shame though. I think with it now moving online, it really is going to reduce a lot of just everything, the viewership, the interest. I think is probably the other one as well. Just also just especially because it overlaps with IM China and they're on relatively similar-ish time zones. Yeah. So most people are going to watch IM China, which is the bulk of the big teams. We also saw as well, I think if I'm right saying, was it Apex who got invited to it and then got uninvited? Yeah. So that kind of thing sucks to see because that's just, you know, it kind of just feels a little bit in bad faith. Yeah, it's rough, right? You know, getting invited and then uninvited. Obviously for Apex in the future, they're probably just, you know, not really going to want to deal with them because it's kind of a rough thing to happen. Yeah, because they got uninvited because bigger teams said yes, and now of course Liquid have said no. So then, do they then go back to Apex? I don't really know. I don't know. It's rough, man. I think I'm glad that they're still doing it and not outright cancelled it, but it being an online event now really does kind of detract a lot away from it. So we'll see. Hopefully they get a chance tail end of the year or into 2025 when things open up, but the calendar's always stocked with plenty of tournaments and probably even more so in towards next year. So we'll see whether they even get the chance to do
I had a look at the closed qualifier for it as well, right? And I was looking at the game that qualified a team to the main event.
Yeah.
It was a BO5 to qualify a team to the main event. It was between BetBoom and Fours. I was looking at it earlier today before our podcast. And BetBoom, the 3 maps they lost in the BO5 to lose it 3-2 was 16-13, 13-11, and then 16-13 again on the 5th map from 10-2 up on Overpass.
Yeah.
So I like, just a side note, we haven't really spoken about many roster moves. I think the main one that is actually of interest is sort of the tier 2 level is Magnajay going to BetBoom. I think it's a really good call, but that's a unlucky start. Let's put it that way. I think Zorta dropped 100 kills, went plus 31, and they lost.
Jesus, I'd be so pissed if I was Zorta. I'd be so pissed. You hate to see it. Final thing I guess we can talk about before we wrap it up here. Just quickly read from something that happened literally just as we were going live, which is that of Sprout ceasing operations. Now this one, for us who do a lot of work in the tier 2, this one really does hurt. Sprout have always been a really cool TO and have actually really nurtured a lot of really decent talent over the years. They've always been quite an interesting team and always been very competitive too, right? And this does suck to see. I mean, essentially TLDR, they looked at a variety of different ways to make it work and essentially nothing was going to make them profitable or able to run going forward. And I think judging by a lot of the comments that people said to me, it seems like it's probably something along the lines of they had a sponsor that dropped out last minute and it's probably meant that they've not, you know, they're no longer financially viable, which, yeah, man, I think it sucks. It's really, it's a shame to see because Sprout have always been a really cool org. And they've always actually been in kind of, for the most part, sort of the upper echelon. We'd see them make at least decent runs in tier 2 tournaments. So it is actually kind of a sad loss. And it does show at times, you know, not making it to the major, how it can affect some of these tier 2 teams. Maybe, you know, these guys maybe wouldn't have been expected to make the major, but at least make, you know, decent runs for their name value, or at least like trying to make it to an RMR. It hurts them.
I mean, as you say in the article, they mentioned a lot about, you know, losing a lot of their best players. I mean, they were a bit like Endpoint has been. They are a feeder team. And yeah, I mean, it's very sad. As you say, they're our mainstay of tier 2. I think every single time I've ever casted them in my career, they've had like one player, which is a real big name that eventually went on to bigger things. I'm just looking back at some of it now. They started at the end of 2017. They've had players like Searson, Keto, Diha. They've had Favon, K, Wonderful most recently. They had, of course, the refresh Lauenex as a team as well. And of course, we know Lauenex and Stair were, you know, hugely talked about being on the same team on Sprout at that time, and eventually went on to bigger and better things, of course. In Stair's case and in Lauenex's case, they're not really that great for them right now, but they at least got the bag, didn't they, from getting to a bigger team. So yeah, it's very sad for Sprout. As you say, these names are sort of ingrained in our ingrained in our heads. And I hope that maybe in the future, if there is some sort of investment, we're seeing more and more orgs come into CS2 now. I think that it's quite attractive to some people who are loaded with money.
Yeah.
If there's an investor in the future, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing the name come back at all.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a real bummer because I think they're one of the few rosters it's few organizations that made the right roster move even after they got shafted in the poaching department. Like every single time they would still bring together a pretty successful roster with exciting new age players that you'd be like, oh, maybe this team or this player could be successful on another newer team, a better team in the future. And that just really excited me that there was always an org that you could rely on to find the diamonds in the rough and take the chances. And even when they tried to make a push for becoming an S tier team, they made the right decision there too. Like that roster with Boros, Launex, MHL, NBK, and I'm forgetting the fifth. That was a solid roster. It's just unfortunate that NBK was not a good enough leader for the team, and they couldn't actually get it together. But they've always tried to make the right decision, and it sucks that that's a roster now that just has to fall by the wayside pretty much.
Yeah, I agreed. You hate to say it. And of course also as well, the way in which they found that out, FNK talking about they got told about this whilst on boot camp. That's rough. That is a rough time to find out that you're on boot camp with your team, and then you find out that not only is your team being dropped, but the entire org is ceasing operations. Obviously, for individuals as well, like a Savage who relocated from Australia. That's got to hurt because he also relocated. I can't remember exactly the team it was for. I'll check now actually. But he relocated to somewhere in Asia, I think it was, for a team that only lasted. Yeah, GG How, that was it. And he moved out in November 2023 and was released in January 2024. So he was there for about 2 months and then was here for about a month. That sucks, man. Credit to him for actually, having this ability to try and go abroad and taking the gamble and the risk. But yes, really got to hurt, man, because they've all just joined.
As well, like this was released at 4 o'clock. They've obviously, as you say, at a boot camp. They were just about to figure things out, and they have an official, and they're in the midst of playing an official right now, half an hour prior, of course, to all this. I mean, they playing at Alternate Attacks in the ESL Challenger League, and they won the first map very comfortably. So, the players they've picked up now is Xbrat, of course. I mean, Pody was spoken about quite a lot by some of the players who finished in the top 30 last year. He was a notable name. Ryko has done really good work in the Polish scene, of course. Remember him from Anonyma, I believe. And it's been brought up kind of by Taz. He's superb. And Sayot as well. I think that's a player that you put in one of your videos. I mentioned to you as well, Nia. Very good player.
Yeah.
It sucks, man. I mean, I guess the good thing, because they've seized operations, this should... Well, I think... So Pody was on loan, so he'd just go back to Ents Academy. But the rest of these guys are actually talented enough that they should be able to find homes relatively quickly. And the fact that they're free agents means they don't have to be bought out or anything of the sort. So that will probably help. But it sucks, man. It sucks. This industry can be brutal, and it's obviously very expensive to run these organizations. And this is a prime old opportunity or prime showing of it, may I say.
Sadly.
But yeah, I think that is basically everything we were kind of wanted to touch on. So to wrap it up as we always do, boys, what's the plan over the next couple of weeks to a month, so to say?
I think we all have just really booked Aprils. Thunderpick is back, and
yes, sir.
I will be a part of the circuit. All of us will be a part of the circuit, which is super exciting. We still have Compass to wrap up. It's pretty much the final stages of that, so that's where the actual competition is going to get a little fiercer, which is really fun. And I think Challenger League stuff is going to start to wrap up as well. Just a really busy month, and looking forward to getting back in the casting saddle after the major's over.
Trev?
And so, as you say, ditto here. I mean, very delighted to be involved with Thunderpick again. I'm just looking at my little document I've got on my second monitor here. April genuinely might be one of my busiest casting months I've ever had, which is crazy to think, because this is obviously going into this year of like,
nice.
hang on a second,
Yeah.
like, what are we actually going to get? You know, you're always a bit worried, right? But yeah, I think I have like, of the 30 days in April, I have like 19 dates, which is pretty crazy. Like ESL Challenger League, Thunder Pick, and a smaller cup as well that a friend of mine got me involved with. So yeah, very much looking forward to all of that. And of course, me and you, Neo, will be seeing each other in Copenhagen. We're going to have to see what's up. It's an absolute must.
Yeah.
I've been told that it's very exciting. Everything's looking really good. It's very exciting. I've been told that Spirit jerseys will be sold on site as well. So, you know, I'll be gagging at the bit to try and grab that one because it's one of the nicest jerseys in the scene right now. And the teams, of course, that we've already touched on are just incredible to be in person in playoffs to witness that. I really hope it goes well. And it's the matches are good because it's going to be wonderful to experience.
Yeah. So for me and Trav, obviously, we're flying out in 2 days time.
27th. Yeah.
27th. Yeah, it's 2 days time. Should be fun. Get you just under a week, something like that. In Copenhagen, it's gonna be good fun. It's gonna be good fun. And I think it just helps that there's just such a stacked playoff bracket. It's gonna make this very exciting. So yeah, very very much looking forward to that. Like you said, Challenger stuff coming up, which is going to be really good. We've got a good few days of those heading in towards April. Thunder Pick got a good few days of that as well. A couple of days of Compass, and I think I've got a couple of days of Elisa in their Invitational. And then an event which is unannounced yet, but I'll leave that one to be unannounced since I can't even mention it. So for now, just have to keep
it's your a good one though.
Keep your eyes peeled for Twitter as well. What I'll say, I can't mention anything yet. Contractually, but you'll see sooner rather than later. But yeah, should be very good. I'm looking forward to it. We're gonna have a very fun April, very busy for all of us, which is good to see. Next time we're back, maybe I'm trying to think when's the next probably like big time we can do. Maybe like
probably after April, just like
in towards May-ish. Maybe like I don't even know what is the last event. I don't know what the big events are in May.
Well, Dallas, I think, is one of the last few ones at the beginning of June. So there's a bit of time. I think we'll probably have to do it in May. Let's say.
Okay, well there we go. Sometime around May, you'll probably hear from us. We'll have a lot more to talk about as well then. But for now, that is everything, ladies and gents. Thank you very much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure. You're watching on YouTube. Thank you for joining us. We do also stream these on Twitch as well. If you're watching on Twitch, thank you for joining us along this road. These will also be uploaded onto YouTube probably tomorrow, just because it's a long video. It takes a long time to process. But for now, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Make sure to go and check out Trav and Paladin on all the socials. They are linked down below for all of that. And until next time, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you all soon. Take care.